Hey guys, Mark with Think Insurance, and today we're going to talk about Florida home insurance and what the issue is happening and how to fix that. So if you're currently in home insurance in Florida and your rates have gone way up, here are some solutions that you guys can take to get out of that hole that you've just found yourself in. So starting off, it's no surprise if you live in Florida, you know that the weather is amazing, minus the current months that it's probably raining every hour, every other hour, and possible hurricanes. Well, that's a big factor of what's happening. So a lot of the weather has caused in the past decade anyone from the Miami and the coastal zones to move more inland. And it's because the coastal zones have become almost a disaster zone almost every time that something has happened. If you have the right insurance, you're great. The great part about it is the state protects you. So if you have a major occurrence, they're going to say that it's a natural disaster, and insurance companies cannot raise your rate because it's not in anyone's control. This is also known as a black swan event, similar to what Texas has just recently gone through. Well, the problem is now that most people are inland, even though it's kind of grown back out to the coastals in the last decade, it's a shift. People are going back and forth, and Florida has become, since the housing boom, another great place to live. We all want to be in the sunshine, and we want to be by the water and have Disney around in the whole 9 yards. There's tons of attractions and reasons to be in Florida. But the recent claims on homes and a lot of fraud has recently come through, and it's just been a whirlwind for insurance companies. It already was a problem, mainly in the auto insurance industry. Back when I was selling it, it was always something called LexisNexis, where it would pop up and say, wait a minute, you can't sell this policy unless you prove that this person lives there. We need an electric bill and a water bill, or a cable bill and a delivery or service with that person's name, address. We need proof. Can't be an envelope, has to be the bill, has to show everything. If I couldn't prove that, I couldn't even sell the policy. I was locked out, hands tied, and just done with. That helped eliminate some or a lot of the fraud, but it's kind of come into the fraud with home claims and different situations that typically aren't covered. So now these companies are paying inspectors more, there's more of them, there's more fraud department pieces, and all of the rates in most companies are going up. Well, enough about that, we get it. The prices are going up, Mark. Shut up and tell me what to do. So let's dive in what your options are to go with. So starting off with the article from Bankrate, they talk about the different companies. There's about 5 or 6 of them that they ranked overall, and they give their prices, which I'll list here in just a moment. But the overall J.D. Power Association, we'll start with Allstate, is about 829 out of 1,000. It's not just getting the best deal. You want to make sure that you go with a company that will file and do your claim. Some companies are really tight, where it's exactly what you get covered. Other companies are more loose, and they'll say, no, that's not a problem. We know it's not part of the policy, but we'll mix it in and make it work. That's where some people in the fraud starts to go a little bit rampant, but it's just part of their net promoter score, as they call it, trying to appease the customer. Well, that's pretty good. Allstate does a really good job. They've done well in Florida. They average about $1,400 for a typical home. Well, that kind of leads into the competition with State Farm, who is also about $1,400, the low end, and also an 829 score. You'll realize that those two have been some of the most, over the last decade, the best and most competitive companies. It's been so much that I actually made a video on the comparison of State Farm versus Allstate. So after this video, feel free to watch it and go through and see what the differences are between them. Travelers, Chubb Insurance, you got Geico. There's a handful of companies that are competitive. It just depends on your situation, whether you're 15 or 30 or 40 and whatever the case is. Typically, you're going to be in the 30 plus range if you're going to own a home, and this is what we're really looking for. So the first step I would take is to pull out your policy and review the coverage that you have. We need to make sure before we start checking with different companies, because it's going to be a long haul if you're going to dial 10 to 12 companies like a lot of people right now are. I'm going to give you a better way to do it, but let's pull out your policy, take a look at the coverage you have, and make sure it's correct. If I had to rebuild my house, coverage A is going to be this much. If it was a total loss and the value of my house went up, or the cost of wood as it is today went up, do I have what's called replacement cost? I'm not going to dive too in depth of the coverage. I'll link up a 101 for home insurance here, so if you want to go more in depth on that, you can watch those videos to figure out what options you should go with. Ultimately, if you're just trying to go with the cheapest, quickest route, just raise your deductible. I would rather have you have a high deductible than have a less coverage, because if I lower my liability down from $500,000 to $300,000, and I have a major claim and it's my fault, then I lost $200,000 worth of coverage, versus if I had a $5,000 deductible versus a $1,000 deductible. I lose $4,000 here, $200,000 here. It really depends on the risk you're going to take, where the deductible is going to lower the cost more than removing a lot of those coverage options. Keep in mind, most policies don't include any type of flood insurance, so you're not going to have that included in your home policy. That's usually something completely separate. Now, you would normally classify flood as a hurricane, which it technically is, but because of the way Florida policies are written, hurricanes are normally, and verify it, but it's normally covered in your typical home policy, just because it's a common thing to happen in your state. So don't think you have to rush out and grab a flood policy. Just talk with your current agent and make sure that that's the best fit for you. So now that you figured out that your coverages are right, it's time to find what your best options are. Call your first agent, make sure you're not missing any additional discounts. Am I getting the multi-policy discount because I have home and auto? If you're with a company like Geico, I don't believe they even offer home insurance, even though they're great rates on auto, but they might be costing you 20 to 25% on your home because you have to put that with another company. So make sure that the company you're with may bundle it, and then give them the option to shop both pieces. It might save you more than you think. If you've done it a year or more ago, prices change, so it could have gotten better, and your insurance could have gotten better as far as your scoring and credit. So keep all of that into factoring whether you should shop or not, but that's your first options. If you like the one you're with, check them first. If not, make a list of some of the best companies. It's good to do some research, write down some companies that you'd want to be with, or start pulling up Google and find out some companies that are competitive and start shopping through them. Now, what I would do is I have an app that you guys might like that I'll link below, where you can actually shop with up to 30 different companies through an app. You don't actually talk to a live person unless you request a phone call. And so it goes through, you download it and you do it. It'll give you some options of places that you can go towards. Other than that, I would take the advice from the video where I teach you how to shop based on customer reviews, based on your area. So that's going to help you decide if you're going to do that by hand, is find out what companies offer the best coverage for the best cost for you. If you've run out of options, I also came across another article where a person was shopping across different companies. Now, this is one specific situation. It depends on who you are, what fit for you, and all of that. But one of the companies that is really doing great with homes when you can't find other deals and better insurance is Citizens. It's weird because in Michigan, that's actually the company that I'm insured with, and they're one of my favorite companies. In Florida, they're one of the least popular ones that usually pops up on an insurance rate. But because of their rating, they haven't taken as big of a hit because they haven't had as big of an impact on Florida. So when you see all the fraud and all the problems, they are a little bit, in my state, they're harder to get into just because they have a little bit more requirements. They're on top of fraud, they're on top of the game, and they understand it. So they're doing really good as a company. Plus, I've had a few claims with them and they've done great on my auto, and I've been impressed. That's one of the reasons I've stayed with them. But in general, they're going to be another option I would look at if you're going to even do the app or if you're going to shop around. That might be just my plus one company that I would check in addition to the other companies that you're looking at. So what kind of prices should you be looking towards? It depends on the house and the build and the materials, if you have an attic or the space that you have in living, and all of the different ages of the roof and things like that, whether you've had a claim before and if it's a high risk or not. Typically, in most states, the average across the U.S. is about $1,200 to $1,250 per year. In Florida, you're typically going to have a little bit higher cost. So on the low end, I wouldn't be surprised if you see $1,400 or $1,500 per year. And on the high end, $2,500, as long as we're not going in the million or multi-million dollar homes. Just to give you some examples, I pulled up a company called The Trusted Choice. They say in Tampa, Florida, about $177 a month. In Jacksonville is about $150. Once you get into Miami, which tends to be the more expensive, you're about $211. Now, I don't know the time frame of when they started those prices, so let's assume that everybody's revamping this and there's about a 20% rate increase. So you're looking anywhere from $170 to about $250 per month. And that's kind of where I would expect it to be. But I know that if you shop and you know what you're looking for, it takes a few tries, or the app that's below, and it takes a couple of connections. But in some time, if you find the right profile that you're looking for to fit the right company, dealing with independent agents is going to be your best route here, and you're going to find something that's going to fit that hasn't had those problems and aren't having those rate increases. In the future, it may change if they all start having those issues where people start finding those little diamonds in the rough, but for now, that's your best route to go. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. What have you found so far in Florida? Maybe if you're willing to, give us the location, which is the city, the cost of dwelling A, which is your home, and the cost of the insurance. That might help some people that are in your area specifically. I know you may want to reach out to me. I apologize, I don't insure Florida, but I make these videos for you to help you guys learn more about your policy, get you the best deals. Otherwise, the link in below is the one I would go with. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.